Good evening and welcome to our first meeting for the Brevard County Commissions in 2018. We have a quorum. I'll call this meeting to order. We are going to open the meeting with a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Commissioner Nardi?
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, before we get started, I need a motion to approve the minutes for November the 2nd, 2017.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Isnardi, second by Commissioner Barfield. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes 5-0. We're moving into resolutions and awards, and I think Commissioner Barfield, this is yours.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to ask Pastor David Rosenbaum to come forward and any other of the members of the BOAD. For our viewers here, the BOAD is a volunteer organizations active in disasters. And as we know, we've been through a few of those lately. And volunteers make a major difference in our community of how we respond. And a lot of times you don't even see them. They're in the backgrounds working on 211 or working at a shelter. And it's people, or volunteers. And I like to put out there that we always need volunteers in a situation like this. But before I say this resolution, I just want to thank you all. It makes a difference in our community. That's what makes Brevard County special. And we all thank you. Okay. Whereas Brevard Voluntary Organizations Active in Disasters, or BOAD, is a coalition of nonprofit community organizations whose mission includes response to disasters. And whereas Brevard BOAD is comprised of numerous nonprofit, faith-based, and service organizations that share knowledge and resources throughout the disaster cycle preparation, response, and recovery to help disaster survivors. And whereas Brevard BOAD meets monthly to facilitate cooperation, communication, coordination, and collaboration by members in all phases of disaster. And whereas Brevard BOAD assists in addressing the unmet needs of Brevard County residents whose properties and lives are impacted by disaster, including collaboration with Brevard County Emergency Management during and following Hurricane Irma. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, does hereby recognize and commend Brevard Voluntary Organizations Active in Disasters, leadership, and community partners for their selfless service and civic mindedness in support of our county and its citizens in time of need. Done, ordered, and adopted in regular session this 9th day of January, 2018 AD. Madam Chair, I make a motion that we pass this resolution.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Barfield, second by Commissioner Smith. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Barfield and other members of the County Commission. It is an honor to be here tonight. I want to start by saying thank you to all of you for your service to our county, to our citizens. Much of your work, I know, is compensated, but voluntary in a way. It's not something you have to do. Makes your life more complicated, but public service is an honor, whether you are sitting on a dais for a county commission or whether you are serving with a volunteer group in the community. So thank you for your service. Thanks, too, to the outstanding staff that Brevard County enjoys at the Emergency Management Office under Kimberly Prosser and her staff. They are an outstanding group of professionals who do their jobs very well. It's been a joy for me to get to know all of them and to work with them and to be present there at the EOC during Hurricanes Matthew and Irma. We are just blessed with so many hardworking and gifted people in Brevard County. You all know the importance of volunteers. Commissioner Barfield indicated how essential they are. You know that from your own election campaigns. You would not be sitting up there with the title of county commissioner did you not have many volunteers dedicated to that effort. Emergency management counts on many people throughout the community. Many of them serve with the VOAD group. And the idea of VOAD is to draw voluntary organizations together to communicate, to collaborate, to cooperate throughout the year so that when the time of disaster comes, we know each other, we know each other's capabilities, and we are ready to serve. With that, I want to introduce some of the VOAD members who are present here tonight. And starting over here, Keith G., also with the Children's Hunger Project, Gus Kerner, who is with the County Extension Service, Mike McElrath from the American Red Cross, Ozzy Osband, and Belinda Stewart with 211, Mike Fowler with the LDS Church, Maggie England with the LDS Church, and a familiar face to all of you, Kimberly Prosser, who supports us wonderfully. If anyone here tonight is interested in a little more about the VOAD group, we've got the official brochure. You're welcome to have one of those, and we'll make sure that each of you get a copy of that. Thank you for your time. I know I can't offer a prayer here unless I want to visit the courthouse next door and face a lot of legal action. But if I were to offer a prayer, I would be thanking God for all the volunteers, all the important people who give of their time and their talents, especially in time of crisis such as after a hurricane. And I would be also praying to God that He would spare us from any more storms, because as eager as these volunteers are to help, we are all eager for another non-hurricane stretch of at least 11 years. Thank you for this honor and for the recognition, and may God bless the work you do here tonight and all the time.
David, I want to thank you personally, David. I want to thank you personally, and I want to thank that whole group there. I saw every one of you at the EOC at one time or another during Irma, and it's just amazing how many hours you folks put in there, and just because of the goodness of your heart. So thank all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move into consent agenda. Does any of the commissioners want to pull any of them for discussion? Oh, Commissioner Tabaya.
Madam Chair, thank you. I'd like to take advantage of the Commissioner Barfield technique and just register my dissent or no vote on 2D1 without pulling it.
2D1. Clerk's office, you have that? Okay. I do have one card here, so before we go ahead and vote on that, I'd like to call up Ryan Barak. He wants to speak on item 2C3.
You must be on TV.
Well, nobody's going to be looking at you.
I know, I know.
Yeah.
She's way cuter than I am.
Yeah. If you state your name and address for the record.
Ryan Barrett, 4537 Seattle Street, and that's in Port St. John, Florida. Good evening, Commissioners. My name's Ryan Barrett. I'm here this evening to thank you all for collectively moving forwards with a third-party pay study that you all agreed upon in August of last year. We, your employees, are very grateful for your commitment. However, at the same time, we remain a little concerned as to why 5 months after the approved motion for the pay study, the contract has still not gone out for bid. When the Cody study was issued 9 to 10 years ago, it took nearly 6 months to complete. Your employees respectfully request that a completion date in May is given to whomever is awarded the contract for the pay study. We ask that the time frame is given so that data will be available to the Commission while designing the fiscal year 19 budget. You all have given a verbal commitment to your employees to begin repairing the pay and benefits issues that Mr. Visco and every other county director shed light on during their budget presentations. For this, we are forever grateful. In Mr. Abate's December newsletter, he states that employee compensation will be one of his key focuses in 2018. Our HR director, Mr. Visco, states that he loses sleep at night over our inability to stay competitive and maintain a quality workforce. All of you have pledged verbal commitments to your employees, and I pray that your commitments to your employees show physical emergence while designing the budget for fiscal year 19. We have bled good employees for too many years who have left for greener pastures. Please stop the bleeding. I have watched as the 5 of you have caught grief from all directions over tax breaks given to billion-dollar corporations, so our county becomes a more palatable location for their expansions. The corporations promise that in return for tax breaks, they'll bolster the local economy by bringing hundreds and thousands of jobs to the area. Frankly, I'm okay with this concept. I'm okay with this concept as long as your own local government employees are taken care of before we look out for hypothetical future private sector employees. In closing, I'd like to remind you that we are your constituents and we are your residents. Between the Board of County Commissioners and the school board employees, we are your very large 7,000 strong workforce family. We're your public servants, your firefighters, your paramedics, your law enforcement. We're your teachers, your roads and bridges, your utility services, and your parks and recs. We are your employees. We are the proud employees of the Brevard County Board of County Commissioners, Brevard County School Boards, and we are the servants of the greatest residents in the state of Florida. We're not greedy, as some Tea Partiers would allude to. We simply desire compensation and benefits that meets the mean of the industry standard for our respective positions and trades. We desire fair compensation so we may continue to call Brevard our home while proudly calling the Board of County Commissioners our employers. Stay safe, stay healthy, and have a happy and a prosperous New Year's. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Come on, sweetie.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
I have a motion by Commissioner Barfield. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Zanardi. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Passes 5-0. We are into public comment, and we do have one public comment card. Mr. Tovey?
Charles Tovey, 2555 Roberts Road, Melbourne. I was listening to the information that have availability to, and Senator Rubio passed a bill that would allow us to buy sand for our beaches and renourishment at a much lower cost, I think. And I'm wondering, it just now passed, and we had a motion to vote on a contract for sand at a certain price. And then a month or two later, we have Senator Rubio's bill being passed to buy cheaper sand that is available to us and everybody else. And did we have any foreknowledge of this bill going through? And if so, why not? And how come nobody else knows about it? Maybe I'm wrong at the things I say, and I just guess. And I don't have a lot of resources, and I don't have a big old staff to do all the work for me. And excuse me for being wrong or not on the exact mark. And I wanted to also thank Mr. Commissioner Tobias for his effort to find the monies that are being squandered and embezzled and the rest. And we think he should get a finder's fee. Well, he didn't really go above and beyond his job. He just did what the past commission should have been doing and doesn't do. How Why did it happen? And nobody could see this, and nobody could see the sand thing, and what are we going to have to do? Or what am I going to have to do? I'm still going through the same problems. Happy New Year while the sheriffs tell me what I'm allowed to say, what I'm allowed to do, and this and that because of the hundreds of cars and the employees that have a job right across the street. And their job is more important than my right to live. And my whole life for why? So I can have people tell me what to do, when to do it, how to do it? And I have no rights? No. These are constitutional officers supposed to know the Constitution. And I'm sure by now I've evidenced enough to where it's not just a rumor, this and that. But I just don't understand. Where's my vocabulary list? Where are my rules and regulations? And how come my rules and regulations are different from everybody else's? And the people that have jobs can do anything they want, and it's, oh, it's okay, get over it, Mr. Tovey, and da-da-da-da-da, right? While you murder my family and destroy everything I have. And I stay outside. That's half of the issue. Because they're little campground, loitering, smoking sections right across the street from my house, and I have to stay outside every day for 10 years now. And why? 8 years went by and nobody could find the CRA monies. Who's doing whose job? Thank you, Mr. Tobiah.
Thank you, Mr. Tovey. We're going to move into public hearings, item 5A. And Commissioner Barfield, I think this is your item, but Mr. Holmes, you want to read us into it?
Thank you. Item 4A is a petition to vacate a portion of a 7.5-foot public utility and drainage easement. The petitioner desires to extend their pool deck and enclosure, and we have not received any objections to this request.
Thank you. Commissioner Barfield, did you have any comments, sir?
Yes, I have no problem with this at all.
Okay. Commissioner Tobiah, your light's on. Is that an old one?
That's the old one, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir. I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we grant this petition to vacate.
I have a motion by Commissioner Barfield. Do I have a second? Second. I think Commissioner Smith won on that one. Second by Commissioner Smith. All in favor, say aye. Aye. It passes 5-0. We'll move into item B. And I'm guessing this is County Attorney. Is this you?
I think this is the county manager, I believe.
County Manager. I'd get one of you before I go too far. Sir.
This item is a TEFRA hearing. It's a required hearing for proceeds to be borrowed. There will be no obligation, no liability to the county. This is for the Pineapple Cove Classic Academy in West Melbourne, not-for-profit corporation to finance their school.
Thank you. I have no lights. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion by Commissioner Smith. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Isnardi. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Moving into unfinished business. And we'll open up with A, item in A.
Commissioner, this item is being brought back to the board. It is a draft proposed interlocal agreement between the Brevard County Board of County Commissioners, the City of Satellite Beach, and their Community Redevelopment Agency. As you may recall, back in October, the board considered an interlocal agreement that the city had approved and had asked for several items for the county manager and the county attorney to go back and to try to negotiate additional items into that agreement. As a result of the discussions that happened, we have previously provided you copies of the correspondence from the Satellite Beach city manager and came up with a draft agreement after a follow-up discussion with her that we are presenting to the board that addresses a couple of the items that were that the board had directed that we try to get into the agreement. Those are provided in the version with underlining that you have before you tonight, that there were not all the agreements. They were not willing to do everything related to the audit, and that was explained in Ms. Barker's email that was distributed to the board, as well as a section that talked about applying and no less than 40%, no more than 60% of the county tax increment for payment of debt service on the bonds. And those bonds cannot be paid off early, so it seems that it would be disadvantageous in light of what was presented and is in the exhibit in terms of what the county will be receiving back in terms of revenues as part of this agreement as we move forward toward the closure of this particular CRA. So that is the agreement that is being brought before you this evening for your consideration. Ms. Barker also provided a follow-up email this past Friday, that addressed a few additional items that she outlined in that correspondence that the board has.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Smith, you have your light on, but I have one card from Ms. Barker. Would you like to speak before she
No,
does? Or
she didn't.
Ms. Barker? Okay. Commissioner Smith?
I would just like to say that I'm hugely in favor of passing this agreement. As most of you know, I'm the one that initiated the idea of coming to agreements with the various CRAs around the county to bring them to a close. As I've stated many times, I have no real problem with the purpose of a CRA. My big problem with CRAs is that they just kind of never go away, because they can continue them ad infinitum simply by going into debt, and it furthers the shutdown date. So they've agreed to, Satellite Beach has agreed to a final terminus of their CRA, and I'm very much in favor of passing this interlocal agreement.
Thank you, sir. Would you like to make a motion?
I would. I'd like to make a motion that we pass this interlocal agreement between Brevard County and the City of Satellite Beach Community Redevelopment Agency.
Okay. Commissioner Tobias, your light's on. Let me see if there's a second first, or do you want to make a second for discussion, or?
Madam Chair, I just had a couple questions, was all, before the
Okay.
vote. But
Okay. How do I handle this?
Need a second.
Okay, can I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. And Commissioner Tobias?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe County Manager referenced a email that was sent out to us on January 5th at approximately 2:40 p.m. There were a couple follow-up questions that I had before I was going to make a vote. I think Ms. Barker has issued a card, so maybe if we could get some questions based off of the email that she sent all of us.
Okay, Ms. Barker's on her way up. How's the city of Satellite Beach doing?
Good.
Good.
All right. How can I help you?
First of all, thank you for getting back with my office so quickly. My first question was there a reason that the CRA entered into a loan which cannot be paid off early?
I have no idea. I was not working for the city at the time, as you know, and the issue of that loan has been researched numerous times, including by myself, at direction of the city council, trying to see if we could pay it off early and end the CRE early. And it is a swap agreement product, which would require, if the interest rates start going down in our favor, then we may be able to pay that off early. But as it is now, they are in our favor. And so it'd be financially unwise to do that at this time.
Okay. Thank you. Follow-up, Madam Chair? And I appreciate, I understand that you walked into that agreement. You were not party to that agreement, so I just was asking for clarification. It seems as though there are some projects through 2019, and then those projects will be winding down. It appears that those projects are roughly $930,000. Seeing as you have the ability not to add projects but shift funds from one project to another, as a member, another member on this commission, our former chairman, had some issues with and I agree with landscaping, palm trees that he aptly brought up. And there is a landscape project on here, the Jackson project. So
Right.
it's got a streetscape. My question to you is, how much of that $930,000 do you expect to be spent on palm trees and the like?
For a road that size, it would probably be about 70,000 for landscaping all the way down that road. So that road is also, what we were planning on is stormwater treatment, sidewalks, bike lane, and landscaping, and working with the school to get some right-of-way there to widen those sidewalks and put a bike lane. Because as you know, it's a very popular school to go for pedestrian activity. So that was our plans. In our city, adding landscape to roads isn't, we don't consider that a waste of money, so that would be a viable project for us.
Follow up? And I appreciate the comment. For clarity, was the 70,000, that include all of those things?
That's an
or
estimate. That's an estimate.
Sorry,
for-
yeah, was that for all of the things that you
No,
just mentioned?
just for landscaping.
Just for landscaping, okay. And one final question, Madam Chair. Thank you. And I appreciate you coming off the initial points. It seems like you and the county manager were able to end up more in the middle than either side. But the audit and the authority to audit is an issue. So as a county manager, my question is just a yes or a no. Would you advise your city council to enter an agreement with an organization that has misappropriated $5 million of taxpayer money and then reject the authority to audit your citizens for that tax revenue?
We are absolutely agreeing to an audit. We're not agreeing to an internal audit because we already have that function in our community, in our city. What we're not agreeing to is the county commission coming in and internal auditing our funds. We don't agree with the statement that we misappropriated that money. We have already come to an agreement with you. We have an agreement with you about that issue, which clearly states that we don't agree with you on that issue and that we came to an agreement on how to resolve that problem between the county and the city. And that organization that you say is under completely new leadership and under a new city manager. So we have exactly 2 projects that you're going to be auditing, if you will. And literally less than 5% of this budget spent on admin expenses. So we're struggling to figure out why you would want to do that. And the only thing we can think of is for the typical political attacks that we've seen here lately, and we just aren't going to go through that.
Thank you. One final question.
Certainly.
Sorry. And I'm on the other side of the fence. If there's only 2 projects and, you're not concerned about the statutory compliance with it, then
That's
other
putting
than
words in my mouth. I've never said that I wasn't concerned with statutory compliance. In fact, I said in the email that both of those projects are absolutely allowed within the statute.
I said you're not. I said you're not concerned with it. Which is fine. But my question is if you're confident in the way that the funds are being used, then why are you not then comfortable with
because we've already gone through a 6-month odyssey with your county clerk, and we're not going to go through that again. We're just not going to do it. So we've already done all that. It's over. We've got an agreement about that, and there's no purpose to that. There's a performance audit provision in here and a financial audit provision in here that is more than adequate to address those concerns.
And did that audit, the internal audits, the audits that you performed, did that locate any irregularities, or was it the outside audit that potentially noticed the irregularities that caused the agreement that ultimately was resolved apparently with millions of dollars being sent back to the county?
So when The city of Satellite Beach changed councils. There was a lot of politics involved with that. And at that time, those expenses were recognized by that city council to be not statutorily allowed. So they arranged for the fire expenses to be placed back into the CRA. That agreement is currently in place, and you can see that in the budget. So that is actually the legal way to resolve that problem, and the city did that back then. After that group lost their election, that group appealed to the county clerk and made that audit happen, which is why we went through all that. We're not going to do that again because we've already done all that. So we believe that the audit provisions in this agreement are more than adequate to address the county's concerns as well as the city's concerns. And so we don't need to play those games anymore. So we've already done that.
Commissioner Isnardi?
And that was going to be my question to you is, are you more fearful of your local, now out of office
No.
political attacks, or what about the internal audit has you fearful, because in your email you cited in fear of political attacks. What about the audit would cause the political attacks? That's where I'm not understanding. If you're not worried about how the audit would come out, if the commission called for an audit, then there would be nothing to politically attack you on, or your city or your council. So I'm not sure.
Because in the last audit that occurred, we absolutely disagreed with that audit and came out with a big response about that. So audits are perceptions, and people have different opinions on audits, especially internal audits. So, if you get an auditing firm that was competent and a professional firm, maybe, but the city's not going to agree to any statement that the county has the right to audit the city.
Okay.
So, and that was part of that.
That's the only part of this agreement that I don't agree with, is that I think that given that they are county TIF funds, that we should be allowed to audit. And because there has been some questionable expenses in the past, whether you agree or not, everyone else seems to think that those funds were unlawfully spent, then that's what I take issue with, is I think the county should have the right to audit because of the history.
The county is getting 2 different types of audits in this agreement for 2 years of 2 very small projects, literally. So, at what point do you have to say, enough's enough? So.
Ms. Barker, the city of Satellite Beach, you go through a comprehensive audit, which does audit the CRAs also. I know that from sitting on a city level.
That's correct.
So
And we also said that we would be glad to, because the city of Satellite Beach, nobody wants to in the CRA more than the city of Satellite Beach. So I could just be be honest with you in that respect. And so if we had, for example, last year we did an amendment and dropped this year off, a year of this CRA projects. We eliminated a lot of projects. And that was largely because we knew this $25,000 homestead exemption was coming, and we wanted to help you and us through that. And that was how we did that. So, so we will agree to coming with you to change the budget. We will agree to anything like that. But we're not going to open ourselves up to another political attack like we had back in 2013. We're just not going to do that.
Thank you, ma'am. I have a motion on the board in a second. Can I go ahead and call a vote? All in favor, say aye. 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 Opposed?
Nay.
Passes 3-2 with Commissioners Isnardi and Commissioners Tobias in objection. Thank you. We're going to move into new business, item 6A1. And Tad's on his way up.
Good evening, Commission. This item is a request for the board to consider the special magistrate's recommendation to reduce the accrued fines for a violation at 1238 Lake Drive, Cocoa, Florida, for Code Enforcement Case 14 CE 00162, to reduce the fine from $7,417 down to $3,858, and direct staff to prepare and execute a release and satisfaction of lien upon receipt of the payment. The original violation on this property was for work without permit, converting a shed into an automobile preparation and painting facility without the appropriate development permits. If you have any questions, we're here to answer them for you.
Thank you, sir. I do have one card on this item. I'm going to call Brandy Minier up. If you state your name and address for me.
Brandy Minier, 6545 Kingdom Avenue, Port St. John, 32927.
Thank you, ma'am.
My request is just for the reduction. Back in 2014, when we originally purchased the property, the shed was existing on there, and there was no permits pulled for the shed at the time. And so when we found that out, we were looking anyone to help us, and we could not find anyone to pull permits, so we had to end up letting the shed go for free, and whoever could come in and take the shed from us. So now the property is in compliance, and we're just looking for a reduction from that.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Commissioner Barfield, this is your district, I believe. Did you?
Yeah, you know, most of the time when we get one of these, it's from owners, new owners who've sold and have a new property, and there's things that they had to do to clean this up. If I understand right, y'all have had this, okay, it was identified in 2014. And y'all have had the property the whole time.
Yes.
Correct? So, you know, in this case, we have the magistrate has knocked it down from 77,417 to 3,858, which is half of that. And so, which you went from September of 2014 to April of 2017, almost 3 years, and without fixing it until the fines and the lien were placed.
Correct.
So I have a difficult time saying in this case that we should go any lower than what the magistrate does, simply because you had ample notice. You knew you had an issue from July of 2014, and you've had the property the whole time.
Well, the issue really was, we actually stopped all business and couldn't even continue what we would like to have done, and we had to change total for employment. We now have a lawn and landscaping business, so we're really going to probably put the property up for sale. And at the time, I had a newborn, and we actually didn't even do any more work and didn't even have anything came from the code enforcement, so we really totally forgot about the whole issue, and that's how the time frame, because we haven't ever even done anything on the property since then, and we would like to sell it, so that's the real issue.
Okay. I'll wait and listen to the rest of the board.
Okay, Commissioner Smith?
When was the last time you painted the car?
Oh, it actually was never even really going, it was going to be a future for that, but we haven't even painted a vehicle there. What it was we were going to repair vehicles, and then once we found out all the requirements to paint, and then we had to get ventilation systems put in, that's when we didn't even continue that business and just totally stopped that business.
So if you weren't painting cars, why are we saying that this was an auto painting business?
Because of all the vehicles on the property, I'm not really sure, but this is from 2014. We originally applied for the business for that, and so, but we never got to continue or even do any of that. We had to stop everything due to the shed not being compliant, and there's a small building on the property as well, and it's less than 25 square foot to be able to run a business out of there, so I have to also, it's just been a big headache since we purchased the property from that point.
Mr. Calkin.
What we have is we cited for work without permit. That was the initial violation on the property. There was I don't have any record of them saying that they have not used it for painting or anything like that in our case file. So, and we don't have a record of when they stopped painting the vehicles. We just have that it went for 3 years, it accrued to the total amount, and then they came in and asked for the reduction.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm sympathetic to what you're saying. I find it hard to believe and a little incongruous that you would have been notified and then just forgot about a fine for 3 years. And so I'm kind of with my fellow commissioner, Mr. Barfield, with this one.
Commissioner Isnardi?
I'm a little more sympathetic, and it's not because, I mean, I appreciate the fact that you had financial circumstances. I look at the cost. I think, you know, and I've always been one, and I'm not sure that we've had a boatload of code enforcement issues before us. Usually it's just the occasional issue like yourself where you're coming in. But this cutting it in half seems sort of arbitrary. It's like the magistrate just says, oh, well, we'll just cut you in half. Because to fine somebody $25 per day, and I understand, and I've had people, when I was a city council person, could come up and say, the fine got so high that I felt like it was out of my reach, and it was easier to ignore only because of my financial circumstances. And when a fine's over $5,000, again, it's out of your reach, and you're like, okay, well, we'll just move, and hopefully it won't follow us. And I understand. I mean, we're all human. I think that the fine, at the very least, should be reduced to the cost for staff. In that way, it's justifiable. And so that cost, the remaining cost on that would be $23.75. So that would be my suggestion. That's a fair amount because that's the cost of the county's time. But I think the fine amount over $7,000 is just absolutely ridiculous. And again, it could seem out of reach when it gets that high. So that would be my recommendation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, what's the pleasure of the commission?
I'll make a motion to reduce the fine for Ms. Munier to for the remainder amount of $23.75.
I have a motion.
Can I ask a question for Mr. Knox? If
Yes.
we vote no on this, where do we go from there?
Wait for another motion?
Yeah, wait for a second motion.
Okay, got it.
Okay, do I have a second? Motion fails for lack of second.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Do I have another motion?
I'm not making a motion.
Oh, Commissioner Tobias, I'm sorry, I missed your light again.
Thank you. And I'm caught somewhere in the middle, so I'm using math here. It looks like the reduction was about $3,559 to a total of $3,858. The cost to staff was $23.75. I took them, I divided by 2, and I got $3,117. I think that's smack in the middle between what Commissioner Isnardi said and what Commissioner Barfield and Smith said, and I just wanted to throw a compromise number right there in the middle and see if that stuck. Before putting out an motion, I'd certainly like to hear what other opinions on that would be.
What number did you get again, Commissioner Tobias?
Always check my math, okay? $3,117, which is just the middle between the reduction amount
Okay.
and then the amount it cost staff.
Okay, because what I did is I took the amount before they made the payment, which would be $27.25, and I added it and divided it by 2, and then subtract their $350, and I got $2,992.
Yes, that's more.
As you're the accountant, I will defer. I am
Don't trust
deferring
that.
to you.
Without a calculator, it could be bad. Okay, so are you making a motion, sir? I'm sorry. Was that what you were wanting to do, or?
Yes, I'll make a motion with your numbers of, can you repeat them again?
2992.
2992.
Yes, Commissioner Isnardi, did you want to make a comment, ma'am?
I would say that's better than where we were, so I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you.
I just have to say, all this high finance make my head spin.
Thank goodness those are lower numbers. Okay, we're into item new business B1. Chief.
Commissioners, Fire Rescue is bringing forth item 6B1, which is requesting board direction for potential user fee increase for EMS transports. As you're aware, Fire Rescue is one organization split into 2. On the fire operations side, we are funded primarily by the fire assessment and the MSTU. On the EMS side, we are funded by EMS user fees and a general fund transfer. This particular request is going to raise our user fees, given 2 options that you see before you on your sheet. And the reason for which is to offset rising costs that stagnant billing rates have not been able to overcome. Over the years, since 2009, we've seen about a $3 million increase in salary and benefits. We have deferred capital. At one point, we used to buy 4 ambulances a year to keep up with our fleet. We are now able to purchase 3 a year due to rising costs of those units. We have deferred CIP. We have one EMS station in the south end of the county that is suffering from mold and moisture issues. It will almost cost as much to repair that station than it will to replace it. Another one of our stations is in disrepair and needs to be replaced. It is not a hardened station as the rest of them are. It is a double-wide mobile home behind Palm Bay Community Hospital that has been there for quite a while. We have seen an increase in facility maintenance costs to the tune of, well, I'll start from the beginning. Last year, we saw about $900,000 in mold and moisture remediation countywide in our fire stations. EMS's portion of that is roughly half, so about $450,000 that we've spent trying to remediate some of the mold issues that we've had. None of our vendors seem to care about CPI, as for example, our cardiac monitor maintenance firm that manages our monitors, their contract has gone up 50% in 4 years. And Commissioner Smith, you and I had a conversation not too long ago, probably when I first became fire chief. You were amazed at how much ambulances cost over the past 10 years or so. They've gone up quite a bit. We also are seeing some internal costs rising in the form of potential rise in our cost allocation that we're going to pay into. And of course, looming is potential wage increases as well. What we've given you is 2 options. You see on one side is our current rate. Option 1 is the average rate, which back in 2009, when we came for a user fee increase, we went with the average. And one of those pieces of paper shows you a list of 56 providers that our billing company, Intermedics, provides services for. And if you look, we're within the bottom, down to the bottom 6 or 7 right there. This is exactly where we were back in 2009. What the board decided to do then was take an average, and that's where we came up with the rates that we have today. Option number 2 is taking a cumulative CPI since 2009, which winds up being 15.75%, and applying that to our current rates, which would net us about $302,000. Now, a lot of you are wondering why, when you apply 15.75, why that does not make a 15.75% increase in our net revenue. And that's because when you apply it, remember, when the patients that we transport are Medicare, Medicaid, Champus, self-pay, and few that have insurance. So when you apply that 15.75, it doesn't mean a 15.75 net increase in revenue. That is applied to all those payer mixes, and that's how that $300,000 is factored in. So what we are seeking is direction and approval for a rate increase.
Thank you, sir.
If I could just add a couple of more points. On option 2, while it would be going up by 15.75%, the actual net impact is approximately 2% to the 15.9 million that's currently collected. So that would only provide 2%. And in both option A and B, what we are requesting is that future increases be tied to the CPI index, so that if it goes up, it will go up by that amount. If it goes down, it will go down by that amount. It's important to note, though, that even if we obtain the CPI increase in the future, that will be only a small increase compared to the net revenues just in this particular fund category, because once again, as Chief Schollmeyer has indicated, between Medicare and Medicaid, we're already at 68% of those revenues are capped, because we're already receiving the maximum amount of funds that the federal government will provide through those programs for those particular cases. So we're looking forward to the board's direction, hopeful for option number 1, but we wanted to provide option number 1 and option number 2 for the board's consideration, along with the CPI index moving forward.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Barfield?
Chief, could you explain for everyone here what they do, what the government does pay for Medicare and Medicaid versus what we bill them?
All right, so the Centers for Medicaid Services have different regions and different fees that they pay throughout the country. For us, and I'll run through the list, and just for an example, for a basic life support transport, non-critical transport, we charge $501. Medicare pays $347 for that transport. An ALS-2 transport that we charge $627 for, Medicare pays $412 for. Now, if you look at Medicaid, for that same BLS transport, Medicaid pays $136 for that same transport that we charge $501 for. And for that advanced life support transport, they pay $190 instead of $627. So that's what we're facing when we deal with Medicare, Medicaid, and Champus.
I also think it's amazing on the self-pay that there's the self-pay is like 16%. Who we charge, only 1% comes back. And we see that when we have to do the write-offs all the time.
Correct.
So the one other thing I'd like to say, I'm sure I'll say something else later, but it really bothers me when we try to apply the consumer price index to things like this, because consumer price index is it's market costs for the consumer, and it does not include energy costs. It includes things like your eggs, bread, things like that you purchase every day. It certainly doesn't work for a cardiac monitor, and it doesn't work for ambulances. So ambulance prices have gone up from what, Chief? What were they? You told me the other day. To what's they 10 years ago they were what? Now are they?
We used to pay about $121,000 for an ambulance, and they went up to $191,000 in 2017.
So applying to CPI, this doesn't apply. I really don't think it even applies to what we do in county government, because as it relates to infrastructure, it's not the cost of concrete, asphalt. The CPI is not set up for that. So I really believe we need to go to the higher one, option 1. But we also did in our office, was that yesterday? Mm-hmm. An exercise to see, okay, what would happen if you take all the money that is not covered by Medicaid and Medicare, and you roll that into a rate just to try to make up for all that you don't get, and you're still going to bill and never get it because it's Medicare. What would that come out to? And it was pretty close to the option 1. It was very close to it, if I remember right. So I really believe that we're going to have to move up on this, and it's a fee. Insurance covers it, and your costs have gone up. From a business perspective, it's the right thing to do, So I know someone else down there wants to speak first before I'll make a motion.
Okay, Commissioner Smith?
I just wanted to say I'd like to make a motion that we accept option 1. So if you want to do it instead, you can go right at it.
I'll let you go. I'll second it.
Okay, very good.
Motion by Commissioner Smith, a second by Commissioner Barfield. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Passes 4-1 with Commissioner Tobias in opposition. Thank you, Chief. We're going to move into item 6D1. Mr. Knox.
Madam Chair, this is legislative intent permission to advertise an amendment to Section 102-122(a) of the County Code, which relates to bonding for tourist development tax. And by way of explanation, I sent out a memo yesterday to everybody's office, and basically we're trying to correct an error that was made when this book was adopted in total back in 1994, and this is volume 1 of that book. And the code company made a mistake in translating its numbering system into a new numbering system that has caused us to have an illegal provision in 102-122A. So we're trying to correct that.
Thank you, sir. Do I have a motion to allow him to advertise to correct it?
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. Second by Commissioner Snarty. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. I don't know what you're saying. Oh, who made the motion? Thank you. 4-0. Okay, we're going to move into a time certain here in just a few minutes, but before we do, I'm going to go ahead and take a 5-minute break because I think it's going to be a little bit lengthy. So we'll come back at 6:02.